welcome.
The pretend applause was not louder than the real applause. But anyway, hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Javor. He's made a big build-up there, and I'm not sure that I will live up to that billing, but I will do my best. Thank you very much. I must say, we attend a lot of conferences on the subject of data security, and it's worth saying that the quality of the discussions today has been well above what we often hear, where there's a lot of blah blah and not an awful lot of content. And it's been very impressive to hear the content today, and it's also been very impressive to feel the energy which Javor has put into the various sessions. I think that's exceptional. Thank you very much. I have an awful lot to cover in 30 minutes, and so I am going to talk very, very fast. Actually, that was just for the benefit of our simultaneous translators, just to get them going. I've promised that I will speak at a reasonable speed, but seriously, there is an awful lot of material to cover. So if I raise any questions in your mind, there will be time for questions at the end, but we do have a standout there. We are supported by our local partner, Nikrama, we are very proud to stand beside here in Bulgaria. And I also have my colleagues with me. There are 5 of us in total. Miguel, from a technical perspective. Papi, who many of you know, speaks Bulgarian, which is, well, she tells us she speaks Bulgarian. You may well be a better judge than we can be. We have Brian, who is responsible for our management of the partner here and ensuring that everything that's required in Bulgaria is provided. And we also have Andrea, a new colleague who joined us just last week, who will also be working with us in the Bulgarian market. So, without further ado, it's been quite depressing up until now. We've heard of lots of problems. We've heard of data breaches. We've heard of data being stolen on a daily basis. We have heard of organizations here in Bulgaria paying ransom demands on a daily basis. And as one of my colleagues pointed out to me earlier, it would be far cheaper to invest in our software than pay these ransomware demands. So that's the objective this afternoon, is to open up the possibility that we can engage and we can help to defend against these attacks. Because that's what we do. It is 100% our whole reason for being, our whole raison d'etre, as you probably say here in Bulgaria. We are about data-centric security. That is all we do every day, 24 hours a day. We protect our clients' data. Before I go into the specifics of the solution, I should probably talk briefly about the history of Comforte. Not a lot on Comforte, but we've been around now for nearly 30 years. And in all of that time, we have been protecting our clients' data. Now, 30 years ago, we didn't have the state-of-the-art solutions that we have today based upon tokenization, security tokenization, which is what I will talk about. 30 years ago, we were very much based around encryption, and we protected the systems by encryption. We have a significant and impressive worldwide customer base of organizations who base their system security on encryption solutions which we provide. Here in Bulgaria, we have a few customers, but we would like more. But basically, we have a long history, as I said, best part of 30 years, protecting these organizations through encryption. Blue chip clients. I come from the UK. In the UK, we have people like Lloyds Bank, Barclays, Barclaycard, HSBC, National Westminster, RBS, WorldPay, Worldline, JP Morgan Chase. These are all excellent names in isolation, but altogether it demonstrates how powerful or how successful Comforte has been in protecting our client's system. Now, if we go back about 10 years, when everything in the garden was rosy and encryption did a great job, things started to go a little bit awry. And we started to get requests from our customers that basically said, help. We are being attacked as we never have been attacked before by outside agents trying to get at our data. And we said, okay, well, we know data security, so we'll take a look at this. And I emphasize that this was 10 years ago. But not a lot has changed in the last 10 years, except perhaps that the problem has got worse. The number of attacks on our customers' data is higher than it has ever been. But more concernedly, the sophistication of those attacks is higher than it's ever been. Now, we number amongst our customers businesses, government, banks, retail organizations, and hospitals. And we quickly concluded that so sophisticated are these attacks, and so numerous are these attacks, that actually it's beyond commercial reality to expect a business, a bank, a retailer, let alone a hospital, to defend against these attacks. It is impossible. Organizations don't have the resources, the money, the time. At the end of the day, they have a business to run. And you can't run a business all the time looking behind you to see what's happening. So, we looked at this problem, and I again emphasize, this was 10 years ago. We looked at this problem and we said, okay, we believe it is impossible to stop these attacks. So let's look at the problem a different way, and let's create an environment where, when the attacks are successful, as we believe they will be, whether it's foreign hostile governments, whether it's organized crime, whether it's individuals working alone, whoever it is, we believe they will be successful. So when they are successful at getting our customers' data, let's create an environment where the data they obtain is worthless to them. It's useless. It has no value. The reason I'm standing before you today is because we were successful, we are successful, and we have been selling something that we call our secure DPS tokenization platform for over 8 years now. We commenced with some of the largest companies in the world. Some of our early adopter customers were the likes of Visa International, MasterCard. Some of the large banks, Toronto Dominion Bank in Canada, were an early adopter. But people like Barclays Bank, here in Central Europe, Mercury Processing in Croatia, Bycroft in Slovenia, quite a few organizations who took data seriously very early on. Why do they take data seriously very early on? Very often it is as a result, as we've heard here today, of real-life attacks that are happening all the time. So we started with these big companies and we were very successful. What's been interesting is more and more we work with smaller companies as more and more organizations take data protection seriously. So we have customers using our software in live use now for 8 years or more, and they are very good references. They are very happy. They are very pleased with what we do. We also have worked with academia, with universities and centers of cryptology excellence to try and maintain our software at the forefront of security defense. So in America, for example, we work with the ANSI X9 Standards Committee, who is responsible for their data security. They've evaluated our software extensively, they approve it, and they now recommend it in America as the go-to solution for data-centric security. In Europe, we work in the UK with the generally acknowledged Centre of Cryptology Excellence in the UK is the University of London Royal Holloway College. And they too have tested our product extensively and they too approve it. And we're always looking for further contact with academia, with Centres of Cryptology Excellence, and through our partner Nikrama, with Kresimir and his colleagues, we are talking to organizations within Bulgaria to talk about developing and making sure that, again, we have the credibility that makes sense in this marketplace. So we have great customers, we have great references from the world of academia, and we also, the marketing department, are more pleased with this than I have to admit I am, but we keep winning security awards more and more. Cybersecurity Excellence Awards, PCI, GDPR, all these kind of protection awards. So, What is it that we do? Basically, as I said, we protect our clients' data. The type of data that we protect is whatever our clients want us to protect in the structured and semi-structured area. We have development projects underway to protect totally unstructured data, but that still renders some challenges. So we are talking about structured and semi-structured data primarily. And we protect 5 types of data. Our history was very much orientated around banking predominantly and people like that, so we protect PCI DSS data. Very, very fundamental, very basic, masking and ensuring that the primary account number of a credit card number, of a debit card number, etc., never appears in the clear. Now, most organizations have a tick in that box. It's pretty much mundane now, it's handled, but we do still do it. The biggest area that we protect is personally identifiable information. So we're talking here about names, addresses, dates of birth, all the things which the hostile agents are trying to get hold of. As we said earlier, was it $2, €2 for an ING bank data record, and so on and so forth. And interestingly enough, the cost of a platinum gold card American Express pre-COVID was about $80. It is now about $6 because of the availability of data. So we're seeing that data is just out there and it's available. So our biggest area is protecting personally identifiable information. Another interesting fact, if we go back 4 years, most organizations who came to us were interested in ensuring they had GDPR compliance. That was the main driver. That has now changed. The main driver is a real-world desire to protect data against data breaches. The third area that we protect is commercial in confidence information. So here we're talking about price lists, margins, location of sensitive equipment, telephone masts, all these kind of things. We also work with the utility companies, because with smart metering, there are smart networks, and if the bad guys hack into a smart network, they will be able to tell that none of you are currently at home, and so they can burglarize your house while you're out. Similarly, they can identify where vulnerable people live based upon their electricity usage in the home. So we're protecting those kind of networks. We also protect government and quasi-government organizations with secret and above secret information, so-called top secret information. So, what do we do? Basically, the challenges faced by our customers in terms of protecting their data has now been turned into problems solved. We prevent, absolutely prevent, data intrusions from becoming data breaches. We have achieved our first objective. With our system in place, the data which is held by our customers is meaningless, it's worthless to a non-authorized person trying to access it. If they hack the database, they don't even know what the information is, they can't use it. So powerful is the solution that we take our customers out of GDPR reporting requirements. So if one of our customers is hacked, if their data is stolen, it is no longer a notifiable event to the GDPR authorities. No bad publicity, no crisis meetings, no resignations or sackings, no fall of share price. All these things in our customer world don't exist. Our customers simply isolate the vulnerability, they find out what caused the problem, they close that loophole, and they move on in relative anonymity. Further to external attacks, one of the biggest problems at the moment are insider attacks. Insider attacks on data from people who work within the organization or have access from within or allied organizations to the data. Now, these can be for malicious purposes, it can be for financial gain, or it can just be by accident. So we minimize the damage that is done by internal leaks. We simplify regulatory compliance. So we take large areas, as I've said, of GDPR outside the scope of GDPR audit. We take large areas of PCI DSS outside the scope of audit. And also, we automate software delivery for data security. So let me dig a little bit deeper into how we do this. We have two core principles. We protect our clients' data at the very earliest opportunity, and we only deprotect or unprotect that data when absolutely necessary. So, how does that work? Well, basically, the earliest opportunity is generally the moment that the data is being entered into your systems or it arrives into your organization. In both of those instances, the data is held in data fields. So here we have an example. Don't know if he's known to you, a guy called Rumey Radev. We have his account number in the clear. We have his date of birth. He was born on the 18th of June, 1963. It's not really his passport number. I made that bit up. His email address and his place of birth. So basically, as we are entering this information into your systems, normally it would be written to the database. In our environment, what happens is you make a call to what we call our data tokenization engine. Now, our data tokenization engine is a very slim, low-profile, in-memory resident system. It sits in about 1 gigabyte of software, and it's deployed in your own network, or in the cloud, or in a combination of both, and it's capable of being replicated and duplicated for throughput and performance purposes. So we make a call to the data tokenization engine just before we write to the database. The data tokenization engine consists of two elements: a data tokenization algorithm, which is the core of our intellectual property, and a table of randomized values. And it's the action of the algorithm in conjunction with the randomized value, which, when applied to the data string in the clear, replaces the confidential data with a data token, as we see here. So the data that we want to protect has now been completely overwritten, and the confidential data no longer exists. So we're not masking, we're not obfuscating, we are not putting the in the clear information into some highly secure database. We don't believe there is such a thing as a highly secure database. If there's a database, it can be located, it's a vulnerability, it can be compromised. So a big mental problem for a lot of our customers early on is, you mean my data doesn't exist? No, it's gone completely. It is not retained. We have replaced the original data with these tokenized values, which, as you can see, if you were to hack into the database and pick up that second layer of information there, not only can you not read it, but actually in a data file format, you don't even know what information you have. Within the email address, we've kept the @ sign because of a lot of our customers like to keep that as a reference that that's an email address, but not even that is necessary. The data is absolutely unintelligible. Big tick in the box. The data is 100% safe from external hack because, quite simply, the data does not exist anymore. All that exists are the tokenized values. So, hang on, you've taken my data, you've thrown it away, and you've written some other stuff to our database. How on earth does that work? A couple of important points. The first point is that we respect the original field size of the original data. So if a field was a 6-digit numeric field, it still is. If it was a 30-character alphanumeric field, it still is. And so the tokenized data fits into the existing infrastructure of the existing systems. So we don't need to recompile any programs, we don't need to change any infrastructure. In theory, at least, the data can now flow around your organization as if it were the original data. We don't need to change anything. However, it would probably hit some speed bumps along the way. Perhaps it needs to be validated. Perhaps it needs to be processed. And now we start to peel back the real benefits of tokenization. We respect the referential integrity of the original data. I don't know how that translates. The referential integrity. So we're looking at the original data, and we are retaining the ability to make reference to it. I've just noticed not many of you actually got earphones on, so it's English. Okay, cool. So we respect the referential integrity of the original data. So by that, what we mean is, if, for instance, it is a 6-digit field, maybe a date of birth, maybe Rume Radef's date of birth, and we have to validate that the first 2 digits are between 1 and 31, even in its tokenized form, the data will pass that test. Something even more complicated, maybe a credit card number or a debit card number. Typically, it's a 16-digit number, the last digit of which is a modulus weighted 10 check digit to ensure the validity of the whole number. Even in its tokenized form, the data can pass those validation checks. So what we're starting to see is that we can use the data in its tokenized form. And we can do much more. We can write it to tables. We can write it to databases. We can extract it. We can even sort the data on its original clear values without taking it out of its tokenized form. We can do business processes. We can do calculations. We can do a whole host of applications without taking the data out of its tokenized form. So now we're starting to see some of the real advantages over encryption. Because typically with encryption, we encrypt the data at rest, but in order to use it, we need to de-encrypt it, move it in the clear, process it in the clear, move it back in the clear, and re-encrypt it. With tokenization, the data is protected at rest, it's transmitted in tokenized form, it's processed in tokenized form, it's returned in tokenized form, and it's written away in tokenized form. So as you can see, the security across the range is much stronger. And we can point to some significant data breaches, particularly in the cloud, things like SolarWinds and others, where the data was compromised in motion when it wasn't protected or wasn't fully protected. So, advantages of tokenization over encryption, very much to do with the physical security of the data in use. Also, we don't have the challenges of encryption keys to issue and to manage. I gave you an encryption key 3 months ago, but are you still the same person that we thought you were? Have you given it to somebody else? Has it been compromised? How do we manage all that? None of that exists with tokenization. Performance is enhanced as well. With encryption, as we can see, you have to de-encrypt, move it, process it, move it back, re-encrypt it. With tokenization, we don't have those de-tokenization and tokenization actions for a lot of the transactions, for a lot of the processes, for a lot of the business. We process about 90% of our customers' business is done with the data remaining in its tokenized form. But of course, there are instances where the data needs to be in the clear for the individuals within the organization to see it. So what do we do there? Well, basically, here we see an example where we have Radef Rume's data record being entered into the computer, and that is written away to the database in its tokenized form by the intercept and processing of the data tokenization engine. Once the data is in the database, as I've said, it's fully protected. If that database is hacked, the data is safe. Nobody knows what it is. However, to use the data, as I've said, some people need to see it in the clear. We apply a policy of zero trust to the data. So whoever needs to see it is validated and defined ahead of time. But here we see a couple of examples. Perhaps a telephone operator in the business, perhaps in a bank, could be anywhere. Mr. Rume rings up, he says, my name is Radef. The last 5 digits of my account number are 47658. I would have expected to see my salary in the bank yesterday and it's not there. Can you help me? The telephone operator can ascertain that they're talking to the right person and they can go away to the business system and find the solution. They can come back and say, Radef, I'm ever so sorry, the data missed the cutoff yesterday, but it's gone in this morning, so you should see it today. So the business can be done, the business can be transacted, but the person answering the phone has only seen the absolute minimum amount of personally identifiable information. In this instance, Christian name and account number. Now, there are other job functions within an organization where much more data is required in order for the person to do their job. And here we have an example of a fraud analyst, but there are lots of jobs. A case in point at the moment in the United Kingdom was a data auditor, a financial data auditor in one of our national supermarket chains, Morrison's supermarkets. He decided to publish the entire employee database of Morrison's to the internet. 100,000 names on the internet. He's now in prison. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. But it did not help Morrison's, who were faced with millions of pounds worth of GDPR fines, and they were taken to court, not unnaturally, by their employees, many of whom had suffered real financial loss as a result of credit cards being taken out in their name, bank accounts opened, etc. So, with our system in place, I've explained how we approach the data with zero trust, we minimize the data that the person needs to see, but in the case where somebody naturally needs necessarily to see a lot of data, what we do is monitor the normal business usage. And so even somebody like a data auditor or a chief executive officer or somebody who has a very high level of password access, big security, very senior, we also monitor the usage. So we limit, based upon what our customers dictate, we limit them to seeing 1 record at a time, or 5, or 10, or 20. It doesn't really matter. The point is, it's not 100,000. And so the damage that can be done by insiders is very much minimized. And we control the data in this way. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we do on the data protection side. There are some other benefits, because as we've locked down the data on the database, we can open the data up for increased usage. There are increasingly a lot of people whose whole job function is to do with squeezing the maximum amount of value out of the data that we hold. Data analysts, underwriters, marketeers, they need to get at the data to do their modeling, and very often they are prevented, because to allow them access to that data would open up too much vulnerable information. But with our system in place, those data analysts, those marketeers can have absolute access at a granular level to all the data. They can do their projections, their analyses, etc., and we are confident that the data is not compromised. There are other benefits as well, which I can't go into for time, but come and talk to us if you're interested in exploring further. Now, we are not the largest company in the world. As Yavor said at the beginning, we have grown and are continuing to grow significantly, but we are still not a Microsoft, we're not an Amazon, we're not a Google. And so we work with a number of different organizations, people like Forrester, Coppinger Cole, Gartner, and others, who are all very much coming on board to the benefits and the strengths of data tokenization. Forrester make the point that data security and privacy is a driver of resilience, revenue, and growth. And by what they mean by that, they go on to talk about the number of organizations who have actually gone bust. They've gone out of business as a direct result of a data breach. There's lots in America, there are some in Europe. We don't seem to talk about it as much as the Americans do, but there are lots of examples out there. Morrison's, the UK supermarket that I mentioned, their financial position was reduced to such an extent that they were subject before Christmas last year to a hostile takeover bid from an American-backed venture capital company. And basically they lost the fight. So they were taken over by American VCs. All the management has gone. It's all changed. Although the supermarket remains, behind the scenes, everybody's lost their jobs at the executive level. Now, Gartner go even further. They talk about the growth in data generation rendering current data security methods obsolete. And we've talked today a lot about different security methods. I'm afraid that we are not a fan of many of the protections which organizations put in place. Gartner make the point that the way in which security has grown over the years, it's very piecemeal. So we started with antivirus, perhaps. We had data encryption at rest. We've got perimeter protection. We've got intrusion detection. We've got SIEM. We've got all these different solutions. But actually, you could probably invest in 100 of those solutions, and the determined outsider or the knowledgeable insider will find a 101st way of getting in. And that's the challenge. Now, that was a challenge when we were all on premise, and we knew who usually was in our data center and what were they doing and were they allowed to be there. Now, as we move to the cloud, this problem just explodes. Because as we all know, it's not really a cloud. It's somebody else's data server somewhere else in the world. And none of the cloud suppliers routinely protect the data in motion and in use. And even at rest, some of the protections leave a lot to be desired. Now, if you talk to the main cloud suppliers, you talk to Amazon, talk to Google, they make no apology. They see their function as the security of the cloud, not the data in the cloud. Data in the cloud remains the responsibility of the user, the owner. Now, we see and talk to a lot of organizations who either don't know that or don't appreciate the implications of that. So if we go back to Gartner, what do they say? Basically, if we were starting afresh with a clean sheet of paper, what would we do? And the answer, we think, is very simple. We would protect the data itself, because that's what every bad actor is trying to get at. That's what they're trying to access. And that's fundamentally what we do. I am running out of time. What I've talked about there is our secure DPS Enterprise Protection Suite. As I said, we've been selling it now very successfully for 8 years. We're very interested. We are talking to a number of businesses in Bulgaria, and we are optimistic that we'll be getting customers here very soon. It is an area of great interest, not just in Bulgaria, but all over the place. In Bulgaria, there seems to be a lot of publicity, open publicity, about some of the breaches that have taken place. The national tax authorities, Sofia municipality, and others, it's well known. In some other markets, it's not so well known. There's more secrecy around it. When we started selling our solution, we quickly discovered there was a problem. And the problem was, when we started to deploy to protect our customers' information, we discovered that a lot of our customers don't actually know where their confidential data is. Now, it might seem irresponsible, but I'm sure we're all worldly wise. We've got archives, we've got takeovers, we've got acquisitions. We've basically lost where is the data. And so what we've done is bring to market a sister product called Secure DPS Discover and Classify. And this pretty much does exactly what it says on the tin. It discovers the data and it classifies it. And it does it in two primary ways. It does a kind of line sniffing technology. So with your permission, we plug into your communication network. And as the data passes by, we can say, aha, here is a piece of personally identifiable information. It's going from location A to location B, so we know it's in those two locations. We pull it into a virtual repository and start to build a picture of where the data is held. We augment that with a spider crawl type technology where we go from system to system, database to database, and we locate the personally identifiable information. And again, we pull that into a virtual repository and build up a picture. And we can do that for structured files, for unstructured files, and in known and, very importantly, unknown locations. And over a beer or a wine, we can discuss, maybe in semi-confidence, some of the places where we have found data which should make your toes curl. So, very, very successful deployment of Secure Discover and Classify. We bring the information into this virtual repository. From that, we can build an inventory that says this is what we hold. And from that, we can define a policy that says, okay, these are the people who need access to that information in this way. So that's a great precursor to defining and deploying Secure DPS Enterprise, or it's a good exercise in its own right. And finally, the third product that we have up there, Secure DPS Connect, is a fast-track enabler for when we are deploying in the cloud. We have within Secure DPS Connect about 200 of the most common interfaces, file formats, for 200 of the most popular commercial off-the-shelf software packages. So we're talking about Office 365, SAP, Salesforce, Oracle, ServiceNow, all these packages which are deployed in the cloud. We know ahead of time, from a standard implementation point of view, where the data is. So we can quickly protect that data in the cloud. So that's pretty much what we do. It's a massive growth area. It's growing rapidly. Again, back to Gartner. They are saying that by 2024, nearly 30% of enterprises will have adopted a data security platform approach. And 2024 is only about 15 months away, which is a bit scary. So the question really is, how does that resonate here in Bulgaria? And what can we do to help you protect your data from all these people that we've heard today are trying to get access to it? Thank you very much for your time. Hope that was interesting. I tried to present a solution to all the problems that you're experiencing. And if you would like to discuss more, please come to the stand or talk to any of my colleagues, as I mentioned earlier. Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.